Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving straight into the fascinating world of convolutional neural networks, or CNNs, to see exactly how computers learn to recognize the world around them. Seriously, if you've ever wondered how your phone just knows there's a face in your photo, or how a self-driving car distinguishes between a stop sign and a pedestrian, you are in the exact right place. So let's think about this for a second. How does a computer actually see a cat? When we look at a photo of a cat, our brains effortlessly process the fluffy ears, the whiskers, the shape of the eyes. We just get it. But to a computer, that picture is literally just a massive, chaotic grid of numbers representing pixel values. So the core challenge we're tackling today is understanding how an AI model transforms those raw, seemingly random pixels into a definitive, confident classification of, yes, that is a cat. To figure this out, we're going to follow a pixel through a complete factory pipeline. We'll start with how CNNs see images, explore the CNN architecture, decode kernels and strides, understand pooling and downsampling, check out the final prediction, and finally wrap up with tuning for performance. All right, section 1, how CNNs see images. We are moving beyond independent pixels. So what is it? Well, a convolutional neural network, or CNN for short, is basically a specialized neural network explicitly designed for image-like data. And the absolute magic phrase you want to remember here is spatial hierarchies. Instead of treating every pixel like some isolated island, a CNN acts like a highly methodical detective. In its early layers, it's just looking for really simple local patterns, a sharp edge here, a change in texture over there. Then, as we move deeper into the network, it starts combining those simple edges into shapes, and eventually it combines those shapes into whole objects. The stark contrast here is actually amazing. If you feed an image into a basic fully connected neural network, it treats every single pixel completely independently. It essentially loses all the context of what pixels are sitting right next to each other. CNNs, on the other hand, exploit that spatial arrangement of nearby pixels. They preserve those local spatial patterns, reusing filters across the entire image to automatically learn really useful visual features. And honestly, this is exactly why CNNs absolutely dominate visual tasks. Moving on to section 2, the CNN architecture. Think of this as the factory pipeline for an image. This right here perfectly illustrates our complete roadmap. On the far left, we input our cat image, and boom, it immediately hits a convolution layer to learn some basic features. Then it passes through an activation function like ReLU to introduce non-linearity. Next up, it goes through a pooling layer to downsample and reduce the size. Notice how those blue and green grids start getting smaller and smaller as they move to the right? We just repeat this process, more convolution, more ReLU, more pooling, to learn higher and higher level features. Finally, near the right side, the data flattens out into a 1D vector, feeds into a fully connected layer, and makes its final predicted classification. Is it a cat, a dog, or a bird? So to quickly sum up that architecture, every single image passes through these distinct stages. The input layer receives the image. The convolutional layers detect features. Activation functions add nonlinearity. Pooling layers reduce the spatial size. Fully connected layers combine all those features, and the output layer predicts the class. It's a highly systematic process of turning raw, chaotic pixels into increasingly meaningful features. Let's jump into section 3, kernels and strides. This is where we find the clues. Okay, so to find those local patterns, the CNN uses what we call a kernel, which is also known as a filter. You can literally think of the kernel as our detective's magnifying glass scanning the input image. The kernel size controls how large of a region the detective looks at in one single glance, maybe a 3x3 pixel area or a 5x5. And the stride, that's simply how many steps that magnifying glass shifts before taking another look. Let's actually see the math in action here. Starting on the top left, we've got a 5x5 input grid. In the middle, a 3x3 kernel filter slides over that input grid to create the output feature map you see on the right. Now, let's look at the effect of the stride. When our 3x3 kernel moves with a stride of 1, meaning it shifts just 1 pixel at a time, it captures a ton of detail and results in a 3x3 output map. But if we change the stride to 2, the kernel jumps 2 pixels at a time. This aggressively shrinks the output size all the way down to a 2x2 grid. So, smaller strides capture way more detail, while larger strides reduce the output size much faster. All right, section 4, pooling and downsampling. This is all about shrinking the map. Now, pooling is how we forcefully reduce those spatial dimensions. Take a look at this 4x4 input feature map, which is broken into 4 colored 2x2 quadrants. Max pooling simply keeps the highest, strongest value from each quadrant. So in the top left orange box, the numbers are 4, 2, 6, and 5. The max is 6, right? So that's what goes into our output map. Down in the bottom right yellow box, the numbers are 7, 3, 5, and 6. The max is 7. Just like that, we've instantly turned a 4x4 grid into a 2x2 grid, keeping only the most prominent features from each region. So why does this matter? Well, pooling matters immensely. By shrinking down the spatial size, it drastically cuts the computational power required for the network to run. At the same time, because we're using max pooling, it essentially forces the CNN to focus only on the absolute strongest, most important features, which actually helps improve the overall robustness of the model. It's a win-win. Section 5. The final prediction. Time to put all our clues together. To bring this whole thing together, we rely on 3 absolute key components. First up, the activation function, like ReLU. Without this, our stacked layers would just behave way too simply. We need ReLU to introduce complex, nonlinear plot twists into our model. Next, we have the fully connected layers. These act kind of like a jury, synthesizing all the features extracted by the convolutions to make the final classification decision. And lastly, the loss function, like cross-entropy. This acts as the teacher. It measures the error between the network's prediction and the actual target, telling the network exactly when it makes a mistake so it can update its weights during training. Convolution learns the features, fully connected layers classify them, and the loss function drives the improvement. And our final section, Section 6, Tuning for Performance. Let's design the perfect network. Here's the thing. Every single configuration choice you make affects both what the CNN learns and how efficiently it learns it. Like if you increase the number of layers, your model can learn highly abstract features and improve capacity, for sure, but it also dramatically increases complexity. Adjusting your kernel size directly alters the level of detail captured at each step. Changing the stride dictates how fast you reduce that output size. Your choice of activation function determines how well the model handles complex nonlinear patterns, and your loss function is what fundamentally guides the weight updates. Now, if you are a student using this explainer to prep for an exam, pay attention, because here is your ultimate checklist. Make sure you can confidently define a CNN and explain how it learns spatial hierarchies. You absolutely need to be able to describe the main layers in the architecture, clearly explain the math and purpose behind kernels, strides, and pooling, and finally, explicitly link the loss function to training and weight updates. Being able to interpret how these specific design choices influence both feature learning and classification performance is exactly what you're going to be tested on. We've seen today just how incredibly effective CNNs are at conquering image data. By methodically looking at the spatial arrangement of nearby pixels, starting with simple edges and building all the way up to entire cats, dogs, or birds, they have completely revolutionized artificial vision. But it leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to ponder. If current AI relies entirely on the pixel data that is tangibly there to build its spatial hierarchy, how might the AI architectures of tomorrow evolve to understand the deeper context? The invisible spaces, relationships, and intentions between the objects they see. Thanks so much for joining me in this explainer, and keep exploring.